Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to our third and last Wellness Week event. My name is Riccardo Conti. I'm the Managing Director of Fantini North America, here from our showroom, corporate showroom in Italy, in Piedmont, north part of Italy. This year has been, past year has been very special in many ways, and also an opportunity for many of us to discover or rediscover the importance of our wellness, our well-being, and finding ways to preserve that and improve it for ourselves and our loved ones. Wellness Week is a series of events sponsored by Fantini. Today we host our third one. We went from designing tips on how we design keeping in mind wellness, and then we touched on color yesterday, how to design with color, keeping in mind wellness. Today, we have an expert professional movement coach and yoga instructor, Alia Bisat, Brooklyn-based, and she will guide us through a very interesting, interactive session. And before we get started with the program, I have a couple of housekeeping rules I'd like to cover. So everybody is on mute, and it will be for the whole duration of the session. And we will have a part at the end for questions and answers. And depending on the device you're using to tune in, you have this function at the top or at the bottom, depending on what you're using. So you can ask a question, you can type in your questions at any time, but they will all be answered at the end. If some of them will not be answered today live, they will be answered via email. And this said, I'll give the stage to Alia, who will start the session. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Riccardo. Hi, everybody. As he said, my name is Alia Bisat. Really excited to be here. So cool that Fantini is hosting a wellness week for all of you. And special thanks to Fantini for hosting me for one of the events. I'm very excited. So as a movement coach and a functional yoga teacher, my job is to just help people feel better in using their bodies to navigate their environments through everyday life. So whether it's, if you're, in your 70s and 80s and have arthritis in your knees and want to be able to still play with your grandkids, to, you want to be able to run for the rest of your life because you love running, any one of those movements, I work to just make you feel better in using your body the way that you want to. So today's class is going to be a functional yoga class. Functional yoga is just my way of saying the yoga class is a little bit different. We focus on active mobility instead of only passive stretching. There's strength in there, and there's a lot of mindful movement, because being aware of your movements is really the first step to facilitating any sort of change in the body. Class will be about 35 minutes or so, and then I'll just kind of give you a brief little presentation of a few points that I would love for you to take home after the class, and then we'll wrap up with some questions and answers like Riccardo mentioned. So you will come on up to stand, and I have a mat here, but you absolutely don't have to have a mat if you don't have one. And I think was mentioned before in your registration, if you want some sort of a blanket or a towel to put under your knee for one of the movements we'll do, if you have some knee sensitivity, you can grab that. But we will start standing. And just stand so that your feet are comfortably underneath you. You don't have to have your feet together. And just close your eyes. And your arms are hanging, your fingers are relaxed. You can feel your shoulders dropping. And don't worry about like a super upright posture. See if you can actually just relax the chest. And bring your awareness to your feet. Feel your inner feet, meaning the big toe mound and the inner heel. And feel your outer feet, where your pinky toe mound is and the outer edge of your foot all the way to your outer heel. Begin to press your inner feet into the ground so that it feels like you're allowing your inner ankles to come towards the floor. And then change that to pressing your outer feet into the ground So it feels like you're lifting the inner ankles away from the floor. And toggle back between those two movements. Press the inner feet, press the outer feet. Don't worry about how much or how little you're pressing. Just do it enough that you can feel a difference between both sides of your feet. Inner feet and outer feet. Come back to center, keeping your eyes closed. Bring your awareness to the balls of your feet. And then bring your awareness to your heels, the very center of your heels. And just like you shifted outer feet, inner feet, you're going to shift the balls of your feet to the heels of your feet. Not so far forward and back that you feel you might fall in either direction, of course, but start to notice what it feels like if you press the heels into the ground and then you press the balls of the feet into the ground. Press the heels, feel the body shift back. Press the balls of your feet without letting your toes scrunch. One more time in each direction. And then come to center and now stand in such a way that you can feel all four sides of your feet. Inner feet, outer feet, heels and balls of feet pressing into the ground, and notice the activation of your legs that you get from that. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Open your mouth and exhale. Inhale through the nose. And exhale out. Last breath in. And exhale out. Go ahead and open your eyes now and just kind of step your feet maybe a little bit further apart and just relax them if there was just a lot of tension that we were holding there. And you're going to start by rolling your head. And I'll actually face you for this just to make it easier. Roll your head. And roll your head in such a way that it feels really, really heavy. Almost feels like you're rolling a bowling ball around. And if your shoulders shift, that is okay. Notice any of the pops and cracks that might happen. As long as they're not painful, they're totally normal. Start to move in the other direction now. Only drawing your head back as far as is comfortable, but really letting the tension go every time it falls in a direction. And then come to center, and you're going to do the same sort of roll, but now with the center of your chest. So I like to think of the center of my chest is right where my breastbone is. And imagine sort of revolving around the center of your chest, like the center of your chest is the axis of the movement. And so my whole upper body now begins to roll. And if you'll notice, I'm not really bending forward at my hips. I'm not really moving my hips at all. But I'm allowing my shoulders to be soft and my head to roll in the same way that it was earlier. I'm just adding more spinal movement. Go in the other direction. And if you're getting dizzy, make sure you keep your eyes open and go a little bit slower. One more roll. Really keep those arms relaxed. And then come up to center. Take your feet pretty wide now. You can turn your toes out a little bit. And we're going to do a little bit of reaching. So you're going to take your left arm. I'm going to mirror you. So you take your left arm, and I want you to look somewhere over to your right and reach as far as you can. So I'm looking at a roll of paper towels over there, and I really want to reach them. And I'm doing everything I can to get to it. Keep your right foot really nice and planted. Take another breath in, reach as far as you can, and then come all the way back to center. We're going to do the same thing on the other side, and you want to stay low as you transfer to the other side. So your right arm is going to reach across to your left. Look at something that you want to reach that's so far in the distance you could never actually get to it. Feel the full stretch of your body and keep your left foot grounded in those full four sides of the foot we worked on earlier. One more breath. And then come all the way back to center. Stay low in your transition. We're going to keep going. Now you're going to reach towards the ceiling. So left arm all the way up towards the ceiling to your right. I'm looking at a light bulb and I'm reaching for it. maybe even this plant leaf over here. Take another breath in and come back to center. Stay low through your transition, other side. Right arm across to your left. Go high. I'm looking at where the windows meet. It's really, really important that you actually find something you're going for. The brain loves a target. One more breath. Come all the way back through center. One more time each side. Now we're going to go to the floor. Left arm to your right, somewhere on the floor. Touch your fingertips onto the floor if you can. All four sides of your right foot pressing evenly. Crawl your fingertips a little further to get to that next spot. And come back through center. Last time, last side. Right arm over to your left. Reach onto the floor. Crawl the fingertips. There's one more crack in the floor here that I'm trying to get to. One more breath in. And exhale, come all the way back to center. Walk your feet back in. And I am going to stand at the back of my mat now. You're welcome to do the same. You're going to reach your arms up overhead as you inhale. And as you exhale, fold forward over your legs. Now this first forward fold, feel free to, well, any forward fold really, feel free to soften your knees so that your whole upper body can drape. Totally does not matter if your hands don't touch the floor, but do let there be a softness to your back and a heaviness to your head. While you're down here, find those four sides to your feet again. Inner foot pressing and outer foot pressing. Heel pressing and balls of feet pressing. And if you're really doing that, you should feel the work make its way up your legs to around your hips. Take one more breath in here. As you exhale, begin to walk your hands forward until you bring yourself down to a hands and knees position. Knees under your hips and hands, wrists under your shoulders. If you have wrist stuff, like if you have some sensitivity to weight bearing on your wrists, just take your hands a little further forward of your shoulders so the angle is not quite as deep. Press your palms into the floor and prioritize pressing your thumbs and your pinky fingers. So I want to really get each thumb and each pinky finger pressing into the floor like it could imprint in my mat, and then make your arms longer. So it's like you want to grow your arms by 2 inches. You're going to tuck your toes underneath you. Keep your arms really long. Take a breath in. As you exhale, float your knees 2 inches off the floor. If this feels like a lot, totally keep your knees on the ground and just work on the reach of the arms. I am constantly trying to get my arms longer and longer. I'm still prioritizing my pinky fingers and my thumbs. We're here for 2 more breaths. Breathing in, breathing out. Inhale and exhale. Set your knees down, take your knees wide, untuck your toes, bring your big toes together, come into a child's pose. Child's pose with active arms. So as you reach your arms forward, and just so you know, in child's pose, your butt does not have to touch your heels, your head doesn't have to touch the floor. Just fold at your hips and your knees in a way that's comfortable. But I am going to ask you to reach your arms so that your elbows are straight and your elbows are off the ground. Find engagement in your arms by way of pressing your hands into the floor. Again, prioritize your pinky fingers and your thumbs in order to feel the arms being able to get longer. And just take 2 breaths here, breathing in, breathing out. Inhale and exhale. Come all the way forward and come down onto your seat. You're going to come into what's called a 90-90 position. And again, I'm going to mirror you. So right shin forward, left shin behind you. It's 90-90 because both my knees are at about a 90-degree angle. This position isn't accessible for everybody. So if your knees are really high, if your right knee was really high off the floor, that's okay. You can put a blanket under there if you want to. If you feel like you're falling backwards or you're falling to your side, just use your hands to prop you. And I'll actually encourage everybody to take their hands behind them. And you're going to take your knees and you're going to swivel them over to your left. So I'm going to keep my heels where they are. I'm going to lift my knees towards the ceiling and I'm going to swivel them over to the other side. And if that was successful, you're going to do it again. Knees up. and knees back over to your right. As you get comfortable with this, you'll notice the hands may be a little less and less necessary. You can either keep your hands behind you, or you can decide to take your hands up off the floor. If you take your hands up off the floor, you might find that your heels will move as you try to swivel the knees. So they might slide forward, and they might slide back in. That's okay. If you can keep the heels in place, you'll try to do that. We're gonna do this just a couple of more times, feeling the rotation at your pelvis. You might find yourself scooting forward a little bit as I am. The next time you land with your with your knees to the right, you're gonna stay. And either keep your hands behind you, or if it's accessible, reach your arms up overhead. Rotate your torso, wherever your hands are, towards your left leg, your back leg. Keep reaching your arms, and now press both shins into the ground a lot. Really active legs. Take a full breath in and a full breath out. Keep pressing the legs down as you reach up taller with the arms. Inhale and exhale. Go ahead and relax your arms down. Come out of this position and come right into downward facing dog. I always like to personally keep my knees bent for the first downward facing dog. It just feels better in my low back, and I'm able to really get some length in my arms. You're welcome to pedal out your feet if you like that. You can take a little twisting motions if you like that. And then find a place that's still for just 2 breaths, breathing in, breathing out with the same attention to your hands as earlier, pinky fingers and thumbs. Inhale and exhale. Come forward to a plank pose. Now, you're welcome to set your knees down because we're gonna hold this plank for a moment. You're gonna reach your arms and we're gonna lower down for a count of 10. Again, you can set your knees down. The goal is to lower down with control. All right, let's lower down for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Untuck your toes. Make sure there's nothing immediately to your right and to your left. Place your forehead down and reach your arms down by your sides and let your palms face the ceiling. Lift your arms up off the ground as high as they'll go. Palms are still facing the ceiling. Lift your shoulders away from the ground so you can feel the shoulder blades squeezing towards the spine. Take your arms both at the same time out to a T shape and begin to flip the palms to face the floor. Lift the arms as high as they'll go. Keep your head on the ground if you can. Keep your arms high as you reach them all the way up by your ears. Let the palms face each other now. Keep them high, keep them straight. Take a breath in. Arms back out to a T, palms face the floor. Arms back behind you, palms stay facing the ceiling, arms are high. 2 more times, let's make it more fluid. Out to the sides, flip the palms to the floor. All the way overhead, palms face each other. Palms or arms to the sides, palms face the floor. Arms behind you, palms face the ceiling. Last time, out to the sides. All the way forward. Out to the sides and all the way back. And relax your arms. Bring your palms to the mat next to you in order to press yourself back up to a seated position. And we're gonna come back to the 90-90. We'll start on the other side, knees facing your left, left shin forward. Again, same thing, same way. You can take your hands behind you for the first few or keep them there the whole time and use the hands to assist the flip of the knees. If you're able to keep the heels in one spot and the knees and hips revolve around the heels, you'll do that. If you're able to take your hands off the ground and do it without the use of your hands on the floor, you'll do that. Play with how it feels to keep the heels from moving. And again, you'll find your butt will inch closer and closer to your heels, so you can just adjust. We're gonna do this a few more times, and if it's not coming easily to you today, don't worry, it's not a very intuitive movement, and it's not a mobility skill that a lot of people have, but it's something that you can absolutely access over time. The next time your knees move to your left, you'll stay there. Either keep your hands behind you or lift your arms up overhead. Rotate your torso so your chest is going to move towards your back leg, your right leg. Press both shins into the ground a lot and reach your arms up in the opposite direction that your legs are moving. Legs moving down, arms moving up. 2 breaths. Inhale. Exhale, 1. Breathe in. And breathe out, 2. Relax your arms. Come all the way back, downward facing dog. Take a full breath in your nose. Exhale it out your mouth. Come forward to your plank. Long, long arms. How could you make your arms 2 inches longer, each one, by pressing into those pinky fingers and thumbs again? All right, we're gonna lower down for 10, 9. Knees can always come down to the floor. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slide your forearms in front of you, so different this time, so that your elbows are right underneath your shoulders, palms are facing the ground, and your chest is lifted. So Sphinx pose, but we're gonna do it a little bit differently. We're gonna make it active. So first, engage your legs. Really point your toes. They don't have to touch, but your legs are pretty close together. Point the toes so that, and really feel like you can lift your kneecaps off the floor. That's how straight your legs are. Reach your elbows down into the floor so that your chest moves up away from the floor. Begin to pull the front of your hips away from the floor so you feel your belly button lift and your spine lift. Your tailbone will tuck. When you do that, your chest will fall down a little bit. Keep the lift of your hips, but pull your chest forward at the same time. So we're isolating, or we're trying to focus on more thoracic extension here, a little more movement in your upper back. Hold this for 2 more breaths. Breathing in, breathing out. 1 more breath in. And exhale. Go ahead and relax. Just make a pillow with your hands for a moment and pause. Just let any sensations in your back settle. You can shake out your hips if that feels good, or just take a moment. Find a breath or 2. And then as you're ready, come on back up to your tabletop position. Step your right foot forward between your hands. And then this is where, if you have a blanket, and I'll put one as well. If you have a blanket, you might put it under your back knee. And you're gonna tuck your back toes under to, actually, try untucked and see how that feels. You're gonna use your hands and shift your weight forward. Your front knee will go past your ankle, but you're gonna try to keep your heel on the ground. You still want all 3 points or all 4 sides of the foot. You can use your hands now to go all the way back. Lift your right toes and come back onto your left heel. If this doesn't work for your knee, you don't need to go that far back, right? You can stop at halfway. Come back forward, use your hands, come all the way forward, and then shift all the way back. So this would be a more passive way of doing this. You're using your hands to help you, and you're sort of, you're using assistance. I'm going to show you a more active way, but feel free to do either. I'm going to lift my arms up overhead. As my knee reaches forward, my hips come forward. I'm really pressing my back foot into the ground a lot. And then I'm going to use the strength of my own legs to shift my weight back onto my heel, reach my arms down around my foot. I'm going to press into the top of my back foot again, and that's what's going to push me back up. I'm going to pull with this leg to pull me forward, and then I'm going to shift all the way back. So move at your own pace. You don't have to match with mine. And again, feel free to use the hands on the floor to assist. But even if you're using your hands, see if you can use the strength of your legs to push you back and to pull you forward. We're going to do this just a couple of more times on this side. Last time here. Now, the next time you come forward, go ahead and stay there. Take a full breath in. Bring your hands to the floor as you exhale. You're going to tuck your back toes and lift your back knee. You can move your blanket out of the way. Spin your back heel down and come on up to a standing position. And I'm going to turn around to face you. And it's not really warrior two. You're just going to come into a wide-legged stance. Your toes don't have to be, your feet don't have to be parallel. Find a place that's comfortable. For most people, it's a little bit turned out. Just take your hands to your hips. So something that if you take yoga, you've probably done. I'm going to bend one knee, and I'm going to lift up, and I'm going to bend the other knee. But I'm going to ask you to do this really mindfully, so that as you're bending one knee, I want you to feel all four sides of that foot push into the ground. So as you come up, I'm pushing from equal distribution of my foot. Also, as I come up, that straight leg is pulling me forward or pulling me up, right? So I have one leg that's pushing and I have another leg that's pulling. And we're going to do this just a couple more times. So again, the legs are really active as you're moving through. It's not this passive stretch. Okay, go ahead and you can bring your front toes forward. You can make this like a smooth transition or just come back to the ground. We're going to come back to a tabletop position. So coming back to where we started, right here on hands and knees, and we're going to come into a floating tabletop position. And you might just watch for a moment. I'm going to float my knees up off the ground, and I'm going to take my right hand to my chest. I'm going to swivel all the way around my arm, and I'm going to come to sit with my arm behind me. I'm going to press into my hand, reach that arm like it could get longer, lift my hips up, and swivel all the way back to this tabletop position and set my hand down. Let's try it together. If it feels like it's too much, keep the knees, use the knees on the ground to help you. We're going to stick to the right hand on the chest, but I think it's easier to do it after you're already up. So float your knees up off the ground. Take your right hand to your chest and lean to your left to help compensate. Roll yourself all the way around so your feet will end up crossed. Sit your seat down, lift your chest, reach down into your hand. Float your hips back up off the ground, swivel all the way back, revolving around the shoulder, tabletop position. We're going to do the same side 2 more times. Float the knees, right hand to heart, lean to your left, swivel all the way around onto your seat. Lift the hips, swivel all the way back, floating tabletop, hand down. Last time like that. Knees float, right hand to chest, swivel all the way around, and then lift your hips, swivel all the way back, floating tabletop. Okay, step your left foot forward between your hands, put a blanket under that right knee if you would like. And you can start the same way, hands on the floor, walk your hands forward, walk your hands back just to test out how the knee feels, how do the hips feel, how does the hamstring feel on this side. You might use your hands for the first few, or you might use your hands the whole time. If you would like to, you can begin to take the arms off the floor, Arms lift up as your knee comes forward and your hips come forward. And then you're pushing yourself back as your arms reach over your leg and you're on your back heel. The top of my back foot is pressing into the ground to lift me back up. I'm pulling myself forward with the front leg. And then everything is slowly moving back to the floor. So a couple of more times. You can match this with your breath, inhaling as you come up and exhaling as you shift back. But if you feel like you're moving too slowly to match the breath perfectly, don't stress out about it. Just don't hold your breath. One more time, forward and back. Nice and controlled, nothing is jerky, you're not falling in any way. The next time you come forward, you're gonna stay here, take a deep breath in, and bring your hands down to the floor. You can tuck your back toes, move that blanket off to the side, and then come on back up into that wide-legged position. This time I will definitely ask you to take your toes out a little bit. I don't know, like halfway, you can play with the angle. Knees are gonna bend in the direction of your second or third toe. So in this position, you might notice a weight shifting, the weight of your feet shifting. Maybe it's on the inside, maybe it's only on the outside. Find all four sides of your feet pressing into the ground. So ball of foot and heel, inner foot, outer foot. And then all of a sudden, if you're doing that, like I'm doing that, and I can feel the inner legs and the outer hips really, really active. So just being here is more than a stretch. Arms out to a cactus. Stay connected in your feet. As you inhale, I want you to push up as if you're pushing like, I don't know, 100-pound box up overhead. So your legs are pushing and your arms are pushing and you're working against resistance. And then as you exhale, you're gonna pull yourself towards the ground as if you're resisting gravity, right? So I'm being pulled, and then we're gonna push. Inhale, as you push, use the four sides of your feet to find that engagement in your legs, and then exhale as you pull yourself actively towards the ground. So it's more than just going slow. 2 more times. Inhale. And exhale, pull. Stay with those four corners of your feet. I can't stress it enough. Inhale, that's your base of support. That's everything. And exhale. All right, pause here. 1 breath in and 1 breath out. Okay, come on up to stand. Make your way back to the floor any way that you want to, coming into that tabletop position. So we're gonna do the toggle on your arm on the other side. I'll give you the view of the other arm. So tuck your toes under, long, long arms. You wanna maintain the integrity of your shoulder the whole time. Float your knees up off the ground. Left hand comes to your heart. You lean to your right. Keep your toes where they are. Just swivel on the balls of your feet, and bring your hips down. Reach the chest up. Float your hips up off the ground. Come all the way back to your floating tabletop position and set your left hand down. Same side, 2 more times. Knees lift. Left hand to heart. Lean to your right. Swivel on your feet. Keep your arm long, even here. Lift your chest. Press into your feet and your hand. Hips lift. Revolve all the way back around. Tabletop. Last one like this. Knees float. Left hand heart. Swivel. And sit. Hips lift. Swivel back around. Knees down. And hand down. And then just take a moment. So we're going to come into probably one of my personal favorite passive stretches. It's just a cross-legged seat. It's really simple. So you're going to come into a cross-legged seat with your right shin in front. I'm mirroring you again, right? So not crossed if you can help it. The right shin is laying in front of the left shin. Now, if you feel like you're falling backwards just by sitting here, take your blanket or any sort of pillow you have nearby and just sit on it so your hips are a little bit higher. Should make it a little bit easier. It's okay if your knees don't touch the ground. Okay, you're just gonna fold forward. Reach your arms forward. If just having your hands in front of you feels like enough of a stretch, stay here. Otherwise, come all the way forward. There's really no specificity to form here. You're just letting your back round, let your head drop, and just allow yourself to relax. Let your arms relax. So once you've done all the reaching in your arms, let the elbows heavy to the ground. Soften your face, soften your fingers, your toes. Let your jaw do less. Three more breaths. Inhale. Exhale, 1. Breathe in. Breathe out, 2. Last breath in. And exhale for 3. Come all the way back up. And go ahead and just switch sides. Left shin in front. Again, if you can open it up a little bit instead of crossing it, you might get a little more stretch out of it, but no problem if you need to cross. And make your way. It's a different side, so it might require a different length in your torso. You might have your hands set up differently. Just find your reach, and once you're ready, settle in and just heavy everything. It takes a moment to heavy. It takes a moment to relax into some of these stretches. So if you can, go through a little bit of a body scan. Can I relax my face more? Can I let my teeth separate? Can I soften my inner thighs? What am I doing with my fingers? And then just watch the breath. Let everything get a little heavier. 3 more breaths. Breathing in. Breathing out. Inhale. And exhale. Last breath in. And exhale out. Walk your hands all the way back. And take your feet forward. I'd like this as a counter stretch to folding forward. Take your feet in front of you on the floor, hands behind you. You can let your fingers turn out. They don't have to turn in towards your seat like it's traditionally taught. Just a reverse tabletop. Same theme. Press into all 4 corners of your feet. Same theme. Reach into the thumbs and pinky fingers and get your arms longer than they already are. And then lift your hips up. Lift your hips up as high as you're comfortable. You're welcome to drop your head back if you want to, but you don't have to. You're here for 2 more breaths. Breathing in. Breathing out. 1 more breath in. Lower your hips down as you exhale. So we're going to end practice with a little bit of breath work that will be your Shavasana. You are welcome to, so the traditional way is to just lay down on your back, right here. I really like to sit, especially when it's in the middle of the day. So you're welcome to take any position that's comfortable. You have your blanket maybe, so you can use it to sit on. You can use it to put under your knees or under your head or cover your body if you're cold. So take a moment to get yourself situated, whether you're laying down or seated. And once you're where you want to be, close your eyes. And just begin to heavy your body and feel your body resting in the position you've chosen. And I'm going to walk you through a really simple breath practice. It's an even inhale with an even exhale. So I'm going to count 5 counts for every inhale, and I'm going to count 5 counts for every exhale. If you feel like I'm moving too quickly, I'm counting too quickly, slow down your breath at your own pace. And if you feel like I'm going too slowly, you can quicken the breath. If any sort of breath work makes you uncomfortable, you can skip this altogether, tune me out, and just rest in whatever position you've chosen. If you're coming along with me, go ahead and take a deep breath in through your nose. Open your mouth and exhale everything completely. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take a deep breath in and exhale it out. If you're laying down or if you're seated, reach your arms up overhead. If you're laying down, you can stretch your feet forward also. And go ahead and begin to open your eyes. And if you are laying down, you can come to a seat. If you're already seated, you can hang out there for a moment. And I like to end practice with taking one hand to your chest and one hand to your belly, either one. And you can close your eyes again or you can keep them open. But just taking a moment to be really grateful towards your body. Everything that it's doing for you, every single moment of the day, just to keep you moving and breathing. It's quite miraculous. And take one last full breath in together here. And one last exhale. All right. I hope you enjoyed that class. That class is really a compilation of some of my favorite movements. As you could tell, especially if you're a yoga practitioner, some of them felt like yoga poses and some of them felt really different. But the mindfulness aspect of it and the quality of really paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it is something that is present in all of my teaching. So there's a few points that I have that I really would love for you to take home with you today that I think are more useful than this class. So this class you can repeat and you can take any of the movements that you want to, but there's some kind of big take home concepts that I'd love to share that are sort of my MO for my work. So the first one is, and there's really no sugarcoating way to say this, but we all need to move more. We all have to do a little bit more, especially because of the pandemic. Like, we just need to take a little more time out of our day to move. And I know it's not easy and I know there's a lot of baggage around it, but one of the things that I think is really helpful is learning the difference between movement and exercise. Exercise is just one type of movement, which when I really thought about it that way is kind of mind-blowing, because you think about like, oh, I need to exercise more, I should probably run more, I should probably lift weights, like whatever it is. But again, exercise is just one type. Movement is yoga, movement is cooking, movement is when you take a walk to go to the bathroom, movement is when you park your car and walk to go to the grocery store, movement is picking up your child in one hand, movement is playing soccer with your son, movement's walking up the stairs. You get it. It's everything that we do is based around movement. Exercise requires a mat, it requires the right kind of shoes, it requires good weather to do it outside. You associate it with sweating, you associate it with hard work, you associate it with cardio, you associate it with the gym. It's just one type. So when we start to think about movement in a much bigger picture, the ability to see where we can introduce more movement in our daily life becomes a whole lot more accessible. Just choosing to park your car a little bit further from the grocery store allows for more movement. Taking a longer bathroom break, and I'll give you some ideas at the end as well, allows for more movement. So that's one big driving point I want you to take home. The next point is frequency of movement's really important. So if you're a runner, let's say, and you run 3 times a week for 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes for 3 times a week, that's awesome that you do that. But then if you're not moving for the rest of the week, is that really enough movement? It might be enough exercise, but is it enough movement? Not really. And so I like to equate it to nutrition. So if we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we have 21 meals a week, right? Let's say 18 of those meals you ate a burger. And then 3 of those meals you ate a kale salad. Is that a healthy diet? No, we all know that. 18 burgers a week and 3 kale salads, those 3 kale salads aren't enough to offset the burgers. Like that's not a fully nutritious diet. We know that instinctively. It's the same thing with movement. 30 minutes, 3 times a week isn't really enough. Again, it goes back to exercise versus movement. Might be enough exercise, probably isn't enough moving. The third thing that I want to take home is the importance of variety, doing a variety of things. Just like nutrition, the more different kinds of foods you have in your diet, the better off your diet will be. Every different food has its own set of nutrients to provide the body. Same thing with movement. The more different ways you can move your body and access your joints and access your muscles, the better off the just whole system is going to work, and the communication between your brain and body will be, the better off you're going to feel in your body over time. So if you love yoga, I love yoga, I'm a yoga teacher, it's awesome. But if that's the only thing you do, maybe you try different types of yoga. Maybe you try different modality altogether. Maybe you pick up walking, change it up a little bit. Try something you've never done before. And then the last point here is active versus passive movement. You'll notice in the class that we really only did one static stretch. The rest of it was actively moving through ranges of motion. I'm a big proponent of this because while stretching is awesome, it feels good. I'm not saying don't do it. You're going to get more bang for your buck if you actively move through ranges. So for instance, if I'm waking up in the morning, I might do a side stretch because a side stretch feels really good. But then I also might do one of those arm circles that we did on our belly to move my whole shoulder joint through its range of motion. We've got tons of receptors in our joints and our muscles, but our joints as well. And when we don't use them, they sort of start to fade away. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's a real thing. And that's how it works. They get sleepy and we forget how to move those joints in that way. The last thing I want to share here is, well, second to last thing, 3 of the most frequently asked questions I get and the answers, just in case they come up in the questions, I can sort of get a head start. So the first question is, what is the best stretch for fill in the blank? My back, my tight hips, my shoulder pain, whatever it is. The answer is always the same. It's 2 parts. 1, there's no such thing as one thing that will be the best stretch for so-and-so. And then 2, it's not even a stretch. It's always going to be move more, move with more variety, and then get stronger. And getting stronger is a whole nother thing. And it's kind of beyond the scope of this workshop, but I'm really a proponent of strength, and not strength training like you have to lift a heavy barbell at the gym, just getting stronger in order to do functional daily activities. So anytime you're what's a good stretch for my ankle, or I have plantar fasciitis, whatever it is, it's most likely move more frequently, move with more variety, and then get stronger. Next frequently asked question relates to the first one. We're all sitting at computers. Even I'm teaching movement through a computer. I don't always practice this way while I teach. I usually just sit. So I get it. Tight shoulders, tight neck, stiffness, upper back, all of that. Same answer. Move more with more variety, and then get this area a little bit stronger. And then the last most frequently asked question I get is, what about posture? What's the right posture? How should I sit? I have a standing desk. Is that enough? So here's something a little earth-shattering. There is no such thing as right posture. All the ergonomics in the world aren't going to prevent you from feeling icky if you're not moving. So a standing desk is great. And the reason why a standing desk is great is not because you're not sitting, it's because you're moving. Standing requires that you shift from one foot to the other. You tend to move your upper body a little bit more. You tend to like sit and stand back up sometimes at a standing desk. So it's just the continuous movement. Whether you're standing or sitting, you just don't want to be doing one thing for a long period of time. So the problem in essence isn't sitting. The problem is not moving. If you're slumped, doesn't really matter as long as you're not slumped 3 hours at a time. If you're upright, doesn't matter as long as you're not upright 3 hours at a time. Both positions are going to cause some issues down the line and are going to cause discomfort. Move often. So a couple of last tips here that I want to just give you, and these seem kind of obvious, but they really do work. I think everybody now has like some sort of app on their phone or their Apple Watch that will say, take a break and get up and breathe, or take a moving break or something. Use that to your advantage. And if you don't have that, every time you go to the bathroom, just make it a 5-minute bathroom break instead of a 1-minute bathroom break. You can do a little balance work on your way to the bathroom. You can do a little dance or skip on your way back. It sounds silly, but the more that you can get your body into these different movements, again, it's not exercise, doesn't require anything but just a little bit of creativity and awareness, the better off you'll feel. I really like to, when I make my coffee in the morning, if you're making your tea or coffee while waiting for it to be made or waiting for the water to boil, instead of scrolling on your phone on Instagram, do a little stretching, do a little moving, right? Any of the movements that we did in class today, you can do first thing in the morning, and it really will change the way you feel for the rest of the day. A massage ball, I don't have one with me to show you, but not a tennis ball. They're kind of soft, but there are these lacrosse balls, and I'm happy to type it into the chat later or send like a link on Amazon. They're like $9 for 2 balls. They're a little bit more firm, rolling your foot on the ball. I like to have a ball at my desk, and like between clients, I roll my foot on the ball. I just use it to roll my back out. I'm a super uber productive New Yorker. And so I like to do 2 things at the same time. I'm a big multitasker. So I'll brush my teeth. I have an electric toothbrush, 1 minute on one foot as I roll my foot, 1 minute on the other foot. But it's a nice thing to just have around. Once you see it, especially if it's a bright color, mine's bright green, you'll use it more often. Another couple last tips. Work on the floor sometimes. And I know that's not accessible for everybody with their computer setup, but if you can, and if you have a laptop, just 1 hour of your day, sit on the floor. The floor is really uncomfortable, and that's the point. You're going to be shifting and moving constantly. So if you're writing an email, maybe that's tough, but let's say you're reading something and it just is a little more passive, sit on the floor and you'll notice in 1 hour, just in 10 minutes, how many times you change your position. So it helps you to constantly move around. And then the last thing that I'd like to suggest is one of my clients started doing this, and it's worked out really well, and it's become infectious with her company. We're kind of Zoom heavy now, right? And half our meetings that could just be phone calls are now on Zoom. If you have any meetings that don't have to be face-to-face, you might suggest to the person you're meeting with, hey, let's do a phone call. I'm going to take a walk during my phone call. One of my clients does this regularly, and it's encouraged the people that she has meeting with to also take walks outside and take breaks while they're on the phone call. So yeah, I think that's it. Those are a few ways. Oh, and getting your kids involved. That's always fun. Little kids especially love to move. So setting yourself up on a lunch break with a little bit of movement with your kids gets them excited, and then it gets you excited about it. Yeah. So I just gave you a lot of information after hopefully a relaxing class. I'm going to open it up for questions now, or anything else that you feel like you want to share or ask just for these next couple of minutes. How much minimum space should be reserved if one wants to incorporate a single yoga space in a bathroom? Oh, that's such a good question. I would say, gosh, I don't even know the size of a mat, but I would say the space of one mat should be fine. I mean, I think the size of this mat, I don't know. I think the typical mat is about 6 feet. You said meters squared, and I'm like a terrible American and don't know how to convert. So about 6 feet. I think it's about 6 feet by 2 feet. I think that's plenty of space. If you want to make it very luxurious, I would say like 2 or 3 times this. But if we're going minimal, I would say this is probably enough. Especially because if you're standing, you can still lift your arms and that sort of thing. That sounds amazing. I would love a little yoga space in my bathroom. How do we better integrate what we're learning about movement into design of the spaces we live in, especially given what we have learned over the last year? You know, it's really interesting. I have a dedicated space in my home for yoga, for movement, whatever it is. And I have to say, I don't know a ton about design, to be honest. But the more spacious it is, the more it will invite movement. For instance, like, and it doesn't have to be empty space, but let's say you have a piece of furniture that's like a really lovely chair. If the chair is on its own, it actually becomes a tool with which you can move around, right? So like, for instance, I have a chair in front of me where my laptop is set up. And instead of sitting on the chair, I'm actually sitting on the floor and using the laptop, right, on the chair. Or I'll use the chair for stretching, or I'll use the chair for like standing up on to maybe reach something like my pull-up bar or something like that. So you can use pieces of furniture in a spacious environment to actually interact with differently. There's tons of research on how we interact with our environment and how we can use tools in our environment to actually move differently. If any of you are in know anything about parkour, parkour is all about like using railings outside and walls to climb on and that sort of thing. So having space and then setting up furniture in such a way that is not necessarily a typical setup can invite you to use it differently and potentially move differently, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense and offers you something. Do I offer virtual classes? I offer mobility classes that are a little bit like this, less like yoga. And I do have an online class library, and it's on my website, and I think they're going to give you all that information at the end. You'll see my name and my website and all that. I have a virtual online library with a bunch of classes to choose from. Yeah. And I think there's a question for you there, Ricardo. Are there any other questions left for me at the moment? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll turn it over to Ricardo now.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I look forward to get the recording and do the practice myself at a later time, as well as your classes too. So we have a question from me for Fantini, which is about if there is any specific collection or look that promotes, contributes to well-being. And also it is mentioned the collection AK25. So I would say this, that it's interesting, the collection AK25, because the inspiration of this collection by late designer Paik Sung Kim from South Korea, it was really the elements of the nature. So maybe as a general rule, like more rounded shapes are the ones that inspire more a sense of calm. This collection is more squarish and angular, but once you learn the story and like the inspiration of the concept of the collection, you might really connect with some really very calming elements of the nature. So on this note, I would say that it's always good to learn a little bit of the story of what is behind a design, who made it, and like the materials, because it is not always maybe necessarily the look, but also the story behind that really contributes and provide a sense of well-being about that object, the origin, and then makes the experience better. But I would say this, that there is a distinction of like the look and then the function, because the look is really the design. You can choose a certain finish that is matte and satin, maybe it's more calming, and maybe like a shiny finish could be less of a calming effect. But it's very personal and unique to all of us. It's unique, it's very, very personal. So the aesthetic is something personal, but the function is when you basically choose a certain solutions. Maybe you can incorporate in a shower body sprays, or maybe use the shower head with incorporating chromotherapy. So there is many different avenues where we can achieve well-being through our products. And remember, the product itself, it only takes you that far, because there is also the whole context where the product is going to be installed. So something maybe can result into something very calming and in, you know, promoting a sense of well-being. But if you take a different environment, then it will be maybe a better fit with something else. So, but we're very happy to take it offline and maybe have the conversation and provide some more insights offline. So today's session, again, Alia, that was wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're
You're
welcome.
so good for physical and mental balance, and we hope to host very soon other rounds of events of this type. It has been a pleasure, and we wish everybody a very wonderful and relaxing weekend. Thank you.